Lisa, can you switch share screen to allow all panelists?
What do I do?
Just allow all panelists, the up button.
I don't see that option.
Oh, maybe I have it. Never mind. Okay. Karen, it should be on YouTube. And Mayor O'Brien, we're ready to go.
Very good. Thank you, Megan. Welcome to our study session at the Burlingame City Council on the 19th of April. We'll be talking this evening about the US Highway 101 Peninsula Avenue Interchange project. And so just to kind of give you the order of things this evening, we will start out with a staff report by our Public Works Director, Sayed Murtuza, followed by then the council members asking questions if need be. Then we will have a presentation by Matt Zuka, followed by questions by the council. Once that is done, I will then open it up to the public to make their comments. When I do open it up to the public, I would appreciate if you can raise your hand so I can kind of see how many people would like to speak this evening. We are going to stop the study session sharply at 7 o'clock because we have our regular council meeting after this study session. So we may have to decrease depending on the amount of attendees that want to speak. We may have to decrease our 3-minute usual time to participate to 2 minutes. All right, on that note, we will start with Public Works Director Sayed Murtuza.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Again, this is an update to you and a presentation by City of San Mateo staff regarding the US Highway 101 project and receive your input and feedback. The US 101 Highway and Peninsula Avenue Interchange project consists of relocating the existing on-ramp and southbound off-ramp and on-ramp from Popular Avenue to Peninsula Avenue off US 101. Currently, Peninsula Avenue interchange only has a northbound off-ramp and on-ramp to US 101. The project team consists of City of San Mateo as the project sponsor and San Mateo County Transportation Authority as the funding partner and Caltrans as the lead agency for the CEQA and NEPA processing, and also the owner and operator of the interchange. In 2016, December of 2016, City of San Mateo had provided an update to the City Council, Burlingame City Council, regarding the project. And as part of that project, there were several community members in attendance, and they had expressed serious concerns regarding the project and the localized project traffic impacts from the project. As a result of these concerns, and at the request of City Council, San Mateo staff agreed to expand the scope of their traffic analysis to include over 44 segments and intersections in Burlingame that were potentially affected the adjacent neighborhoods and other areas in Burlingame, with a more particular emphasis on the Lion Hogue neighborhood. Over the last several years, San Mateo staff has been conducting traffic studies using outside traffic engineering firms and coordinating with relevant agencies. And earlier this year in January, San Mateo staff held a public meeting to provide an update on the project that provided information about the preliminary traffic analysis and proposed alternatives and schedule. Again, as previously, the meeting elicited concerns from Burlingame residents regarding the traffic impact. And as a result, staff coordinated with San Mateo staff to schedule an update to the City Council to provide a more detailed status update on the project, and also the process for the community members to provide comments. This is a very important thing to note, that the project is in City of San Mateo, not in Burlingame. So for the City of Burlingame, City Council staff and the community, the proper process to participate is to provide written comments as part of the project through the environmental process. Any discussion that may take place tonight, any questions asked, any comments made will also need to be made at the submitted to Caltrans as part of the project environmental process. Caltrans, as I mentioned earlier, is a lead agency for preparing the environmental document. The first step of that process is to the scoping period. That period has been initiated by Caltrans, and they will be holding a project scoping meeting on April 28th, later this month. And the deadline for submitting written comments is on May 24th, following month. There is a lot of details in the staff report about the website and where to submit the comments. The tentative schedule on the project is that in early 2022, a draft environmental impact report or environmental assessment is expected, and public will generally have 45 days to respond to that document, which will be, again, taken into consideration by Caltrans. And then a final environmental document will be, is anticipated to be certified by Caltrans at the end of or fall of 2022, based on what Caltrans decides to do regarding the alternative, whether to build, to select any of the build alternatives or no project alternatives. Before I introduce San Mateo staff, I'd like to pause here to ask to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Director Martuza. So I do have one question. So in regard to the draft EIR, so the public will have an opportunity at that time to submit their comments, because I'll have a better idea from all the studies of what is to be expected, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Do any of my colleagues have questions? Okay, it doesn't look like it. All right, if not, Director Martuza, would you like to introduce our next speaker?
Yes, Madam Mayor, it's my pleasure to introduce Matt Zuka, Deputy Public Works Director, City of San Mateo, and he has other team members that would be introducing to you. Matt.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I am going to share my screen to start my PowerPoint, so give me a second. Are you seeing the slides or the note slide?
Oh, we're seeing the slides.
Great. Sometimes that comes in the wrong way. Anyway, thank you, Syed, for the introduction. I'm not sure that I'm needed now after that great summary of information. But my name is Matt Zuka. I'm the Deputy Director of Public Works for the City of San Mateo. I will be presenting tonight. I'll introduce the team members that are here with me. But thank you, everybody, for the time and for the opportunity to present. Just a real quick agenda and overview. First, I'll go through some introductions of each of the team members. Project overview, talk a little bit about environmental scoping itself, which is the phase that the project is currently in. The approach to the environmental analysis, the timeline and next steps, and then we can open it up to Q&A and talk a little bit more detail about how to actually submit a comment. I do want to point out that we have several members here. Azalea Mitch also is joining me from the City of San Mateo. She is the Director of Public Works. Joe Hurley from the San Mateo County Transportation Authority is also at the meeting. We have two representatives from Caltrans, Lindsay Vivian and Carrie Morgan as well. San Mateo is here as a project sponsor. The TA and Caltrans are here sort of representing their individual agencies and their roles in the process. Caltrans in particular is relatively new in now that scoping opened up basically at the beginning of April. So they're here tonight to talk about the scoping process in particular, how to submit comments and how to participate in that and what might be generally involved in the EIR preparation, the draft environmental document, or I might refer to it as a DED. So they won't be able to talk about the specifics of the project tonight. It's still early in the overall process for them, but hopefully we can do some of that justice as we talk. But we did hear from a while back that the Burlingame Council wanted to San Mateo to present how representatives or how residents of Burlingame might be able to submit comments, and that is one of the main reasons we are here tonight. So I would encourage also people that members of the community, anybody that's interested in more detail. We did give, as I had mentioned, a more comprehensive presentation on January 27th community meeting. It was well attended. I think we had 170 some odd registrants, 120 participants, largely evenly split between Burlingame and the city of San Mateo. That presentation went into more detail than I'll be able to in the timeline that we have tonight. So if there's other technical information about traffic analysis and whatnot that was in that presentation, for those that might be interested in looking at that, it was about a 50-minute presentation followed by Q&A. It is available for video view via YouTube on our website, which is at the link at the bottom of the slide. So we won't be going into as much depth tonight, but we'll try to give it a high level and certainly be available for Q&A.
Thank you.
Okay.
Before you start, I see Councilmember Brownrigg's hand has been raised. Did you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to make a quick comment to Matt. So Matt, thank you very much for being here and the team. And your summary that we are trying to help our citizens understand how to comment on an EIR, that of course is a goal. But I think a broader goal, and one I just ask you to keep in mind, is if you put yourself in a Burlingame resident's shoes and they see San Mateo running an infrastructure project, there is a natural suspicion that San Mateo officials won't care as much about Burlingame residents. I don't think that's true, but I think to the extent that we're not just coaching people how to comment, but that we can encourage, well, I hope it's true that the studies are really designed to protect everybody's interests while making an intersection safer. If you see what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and hopefully I'll definitely cover some of that tonight because we did the community outreach on this has been extensive. I would say that the process is also fairly atypical in what one might see on a project of this nature, where a lot of the traffic information was presented ahead of the draft environmental document through the public outreach process. That is not a common approach. That is not a common practice when you do these kinds of projects. A lot of times the analysis is done through the technical studies and the draft environmental document comes out, you have 45 days and the project moves forward. So I think the whole way we've structured this project, to be candid, has been very intentional and very sensitive to the fact that it is a multi-jurisdictional area. We share a common border. It is in that vicinity. There is a substantial property acquisition component, all of which is in San Mateo, but we do recognize that whether it be jobs or housing or whatever, that this is going to be a shared use facility. We think actually when you look at the numbers that it benefits both communities and significantly so. So our intent here is, what you will see tonight is a presentation that covers a lot of outreach, but or a lot of the scoping stuff, because that's the phase where we're in, but certainly not trying to just focus on that. But thank you very much for the clarification, much appreciated. Okay, so that January 27th meeting, a little bit more detail, and again, in the interest of time, we won't go into the same level of depth. I did want to talk about, I just alluded a little bit, but so I had mentioned 2016, I had 2017 is when we did some of the Burlingame specific community meetings. So this project has been on the books for quite a while, but public outreach in this, one of the more recent phases has been going on for several years. We've done a lot of traffic analysis. The pandemic slowed us down a little bit over the course of the last year, but we are, in full swing right now. We did have a separate meeting with the property owners and businesses that might be affected as part of the property acquisition process in early January of this year as well. And again, at the community meeting that I mentioned on January 27th. So those are two meetings that preceded the environmental outreach that we're in right now. We are now in the scoping meeting, in scoping. The California Environmental Quality Act or the National Environmental Policy Act are the environmental sort of laws that we are following as we prepare the EIR. And we are going to have our scoping meeting that will be hosted by Caltrans on April 28th. Certainly we'll be making sure that Burlingame has an invitation to that. And that we will then probably be having the public hearing based on the current schedule for the DED or the draft environmental document in spring 2022. The schedule that Syed alluded to earlier for the final has probably been shifted out a little bit just due to overall level of effort and those type of work. I also do want to point out we are preparing a full-blown EIR on this project, even though mitigated neg deck might be sufficient, because we want to make sure that we're doing the appropriate due diligence as part of the environmental process, given the fact that it is sort of a, well, let's just call it a project of significance to both communities. Syed did also talk a little bit about this, the partners in this project. So San Mateo as a project sponsor, effectively what that means is we're responsible for putting the project forward. We're responsible for securing the funding and overall, you know, the initiative to get the project done. The Transportation Authority, the SMCTA, they have provided funding, part of the funding, the majority of the funding for this phase, although San Mateo has contributed a substantial amount as well. And they have the contract with the consultants for the technical studies and preparing the EIR and the EA, or environmental assessment, and performing the engineering. Caltrans is the lead agency under CEQA NEPA. And they're also obviously the owner operator of the interchange itself. So as we go through this process, they will be in an oversight capacity following along and making sure that all of the process and procedure is followed appropriately. And that, as you indicated, that, you know, this is a something that is above board and passes muster with Caltrans, who is, you know, the state agency. So those are the roles. I'll give a little bit of an overview of the project as well. So here, just by with an aerial photograph, we have two stars. On the right would be the Poplar on-off ramp, and on the left would be Peninsula. The intent of the project is to close Poplar and relocate that 1950 era on-off ramp on the southbound 101 to Peninsula to put it onto what we think is a local roadway that is better suited to handling both the current and the planned growth. And that is growth both in San Mateo and in Burlingame. The main objectives are, one, improving safety. I'll talk a little bit more about that. There is a component where we do think that travel times, given the projected traffic volumes, are going to also decrease. The traffic operations will improve, given the fact that we'll have a more streamlined, modern, and efficient interchange. And we think that also we'll be able to actually handle the future planned traffic volumes that we project for the area. Okay, so safety issues with respect to Poplar. So why do we care? First of all, this was built in the 1950s. It's a non-standard, by today's standards, ramp length. The vehicles exit at speed and when they're leaving the freeway. So I will, and when they're coming off, they're basically three motions that an vehicle coming off 101 can take, unrestricted. So there's no stop sign. They can either go north on Amplet, they can go left on Amplet, or they can continue straight on Poplar. What we have is in other directions, conflicting vehicular movements that are trying to gauge effectively what the decision is going to be of the off vehicle, and make whatever movement they're trying to make accordingly, whether that be to get onto the freeway or to get on the Poplar. And so you can see here that we have two potential conflicting points between the at-speed vehicles coming off the freeway and the vehicles trying to get off or get onto the freeway or get onto Poplar in the westbound direction. We also have a significant amount of traffic queuing. Anybody that's tried to drive this in the morning, or in particular in the afternoon on the local streets, the street level congestion is quite bad. And we think the new Peninsula interchange will help alleviate that. This is a heat map. This represents collisions after, this is after 2017, when we put in some localized improvements at Poplar. So this doesn't predate those improvements, so that we reduced the number of conflicting movements down by putting in some medians at Poplar back in 2017. So what you can see here is we have a high density of collisions in the vicinity of Poplar, and in particular on the local streets. The goal is to basically have that be local traffic, improve the flow of traffic along Peninsula, and allow that to flow more smoothly. Then this lists some of the interchanges where we've seen some of the higher collision rates, but they're basically marked on the same image in colored form. So looking at Poplar, again, why is it an issue? We basically have one lane in each direction, right in the vicinity of the off-ramp, immediately right there as the vehicles are exiting. We have on-street parking and driveways. There aren't any shoulders, and it is just not able to handle the projected volumes in the future for traffic. For Peninsula, there are 2 lanes in each direction. There's more room for parking. There are fewer driveways, certainly in the vicinity. The speed, it's not in the immediate path of exiting the freeway, though that'll be stop controlled. We have 5-foot shoulders and a bike lane. As part of the project, we actually plan on widening the overpass to accommodate a class 4 separated bike lane. So that'll have not only the separation laterally, but also a vertical separation as well, to provide a safe path of travel for bicyclists to cross from one side over to the other, whether that be to recreation or people commuting to work. So in our mind, Peninsula is, especially when we look, and I'll talk about this on the next slide, when we look at the future, the better place for the traffic to go. This slide shows a little bit the anticipated changes. This is based upon ABAG's jobs and population and jobs projections. It goes back to 1960 and shows forward, 2020 and goes forward to 2040. 1960, they didn't really show jobs for comparison, but I did include the population numbers here. And bottom line is what we're seeing is in San Mateo, population between 1960 and when the interchange was effectively built, Poplar, population grew 55% to 2020, and it's planned to go another 23%. And jobs for between the 2020 and 2040 timeframe, 9%. And for Burlingame, not quite the same level of growth on the population side. That was about a 25% increase between 1960 and 2020. And then 11% in between 2020 and 2040. But of note there is that Burlingame does have a fairly substantial 32% projected job growth between now and 2040. So the area is going to be growing, and in our mind, it really deserves the infrastructure it needs to support that kind of travel. I am going to try to enable, well, I'll just use my cursor, probably easier. Laser pointer, here we go. Okay, so hopefully you can see the laser pointer. This is sort of an overview of one of 2 options that we have. This is called the spread diamond alternative. Spread is really referring to the distance between the interchange location on the east side versus the west side of 101. We have the off ramp coming off of southbound 101, on ramp going on north. Poplar, you see on the right part of your screen indicated as closed. The blue road is the realigned Amplet Boulevard, and Peninsula itself, the project, goes through to this intersection, and the end of the project are just outside of the image as we show it here. So this is spread diamond. Just zooming in a little bit. A second. This is what it looks like, just zoomed in a little bit closer. And I will point out this is slightly different. This is an evolving design. So from previous designs, if you saw one that we gave back in January, the dimensions here are a little bit different. This particular, the South Amplet has changed its alignment a little bit. We'll continue to refine this as we go through the technical study, but for all intents and purposes, these are fairly minor changes. But you can see here the bike lanes that are crossing all the way over. The South Amplet Boulevard traffic will go underneath the overpass, and the on and off ramp will be elevated, much like Broadway is effectively. This is what we call the tight diamond alternative. What we're looking at here is holding the on and off ramp as close to the freeway line of or boundary as possible, with the intent of trying to minimize the impacts on properties. This alternative also looks at a northbound only Amplet up until we get to Bayswater, and then it continues 2-way, again, as a way of just sort of narrowing down and minimizing the footprint of the project within the area. The east-west direction and path of travel remains largely unchanged on both of those options, but it's largely the footprint. The compromise that we have is the tight diamond alternative has less traffic storage over between the 2 sides of the freeway, which can mean reduced traffic operational efficiency. So we're trying to look at the balance between the operational efficiency of the traffic and the impact, balance that to right-of-way and property needs for the project as well. And this is a sort of a close-up view of the tight diamond alternative. Okay, a little bit about the property acquisition. So what we have here is the magenta hatched area is sort of the overlay of the spread diamond project. And then the blue parcels are ones where a structure is being impacted. There are some areas over on the left of the screen here where you see there is some impact to a particular property, but there's not a structure being not being affected, so it's not filled in with blue. All of this property, again, occurs in San Mateo. We've been meeting separately with the property owners to make sure that they're understanding of the project and the process, and we'll continue to have those conversations as appropriate. When we look at the tight diamond alternative, there's a slightly different footprint and a slightly different potential impact. And the main difference is the potential for the apartments to remain unchanged, but we have not finalized the design, and we don't know whether that is for certain yet or not. So that's the sort of the overall project footprint and the two alternatives. Again, as I had mentioned, there is the no project alternative that is always on the table, but from the project alternatives, those are the two that we're considering right now. There are some permutations that we've received through public comment that we'll be considering, and all of that analysis will be in the draft, the technical reports that are released as part of the draft environmental document and in the EIR itself. Okay, so this is a little bit more specific to something that Syed was alluding to earlier. Way at the beginning of the project, we approached this as one would, I think, a standard Caltrans freeway project, and we're looking at the proposed intersections in blue. Those are the 11 intersections and then 7 different roadway segments. And then after the public comment period, or not public comment period, excuse me, the public input that was received and the concerns about traffic implications within the city of Burlingame, to Councilman Brownrigg's point, the project did expand substantially the scope at both additional expense and schedule to look at what the impacts were going to be to a broader area, particularly in Burlingame. And so the orange intersections, an additional 20 intersections were added, and an additional 24 roadway segments were added to the analysis. So quite an expansion of the analysis that is also atypical for a freeway type project. This slide is going to take a little bit of explanation, but bear with me for a second, because what we're trying to do is provide the community with a sense of the impacts of the project. There's a lot of technical traffic analysis data that will be certainly made available, but we're trying to provide more an example of what the benefits of the project will be. Level of service is a standard. It's an old standard under CEQA, but it is still used both in the San Mateo and in the Burlingame general plans as a metric. What it basically evaluates is the amount of delay measured in seconds at a given intersection. So it's total delay at the intersection, regardless of what direction of travel. And what we have is level of service, or LOS, A through F. On this image, green is LOS-A. That is the least delay, best level of service. And then the dark red would be LOS-F, and that is the worst. The thing with LOS-F is it starts at a certain number and it just gets bigger. If it's worse than a certain value, you just don't know how bad. So what we've done here is tried to indicate on the LOS for those that are intersections that are LOS-F, how bad that delay is by scaling those LOS-F intersections. So this image shows level of service in 2045 during the afternoon peak. And as you can see, in particular here over at Poplar, this is Airport Boulevard. This is Dwight, Delaware Peninsula. There's a substantial amount of surface level delay associated with much beyond your typical LOS-F without the project. When we could do the same model with the project, this is the overall level of service. So we do recognize that level of service is not something that under current CEQA is considered an impact. I'll talk a little bit about this more later, but it is still a useful metric, and it is something that is in the San Mateo general plan that needs to be evaluated under CEQA. but it does give you a flavor for the significant sort of overall reduction. This also translates into reductions in travel time and the ability to get to and from the freeway much faster. So, and as you can see per the previous conversations, the concerns, at least, about substantial impacts in the Burlingame community, we haven't seen that in any significant fashion in the analyses that we've done so far. Okay, environmental scoping, I'm going to get into that a little bit, and Caltrans is here tonight to also answer any questions, but to give you a high level overview, initial project planning has been completed. We are now in this phase, environmental studies and preliminary engineering. I'll blow this one up a little bit. This is where we'll have basically an approved project, if all goes well, along with an EIR that will have evaluated all the environmental impacts and received all the appropriate public comment and input. If assuming we come out of this phase and move on, subsequent phases are dependent upon the successful completion of the prior phase. So before we can start design or any kind of right-of-way acquisition, we have to complete the phase we're in right now. And certainly before we can go into construction, we'll have to have completed design itself as well as right-of-way acquisition. So this is a high-level project development process. Blowing up the environmental studies and preliminary engineering task a little bit. Right now, we are in the environmental scoping process. So notice of preparation was issued on April 7th, goes through May 24th. This is a longer than normal comment period also, in particular because we wanted to issue the notice of preparation and provide time for, we knew this meeting was coming. We have the scoping meeting on the 28th, and then we want to allow time for people to get written comments in. The technical studies will be prepared between now and fall effectively, and then the draft EIR will be as anticipated spring of 2022. These two times, the two starred steps are the formal opportunities for public comment. We have received and we have taken and we have documented comment we received in the public meeting so far, and that has made its way into the analysis. But from a formal standpoint, this is when we have, these are the two main opportunities. I'll talk a little bit more about environmental scoping in a second and what type of comment we're looking for now. Finally,
Matt, just
yeah.
I don't want to necessarily interrupt you, but I'm just kind
please.
of looking at time, and I just want to make sure that our public has an opportunity to comment, especially since we're holding this for our Burlingame community that may not have been as involved as maybe San Mateo. And then also for my colleagues to have that opportunity to ask questions too.
I have maybe half a dozen slides left, and I'll try to go through them as quickly as I can.
Very good, thank you.
No problem, thank you. So final EIR and then Caltrans project approval would be late 2022. So what is scoping? Really, this is the period we're in right now is to get comments on what people want to see studied, effectively is the bottom line. It's not to comment on the project per se, but rather if there are particular elements that the community feels ought to be studied as part of the EIR, this is the time to get that comment in. The comment period for the actual document itself will be when the DED gets released. The environmental document itself, I think I've talked about this already, but Caltrans as the lead agency will approve the document that's prepared by the TA and its consultants, and it's going to include the EIR and the EA, the environmental assessment, so it will be under CEQA and NEPA. And the scope of the studies are quite comprehensive, as you imagine, an EIR. I'm not going to go through each of these, but this is sort of the high level of the EIR and the major elements. I will point out some key ones. Obviously, traffic and transportation, which we've released a lot of. Noise and vibration is another one that has come up as well. And then community impacts as another one that will be in there. So all of those will be released, and those will be evaluated as part of the EIR. Briefly, I'm going to touch on VMT. Vehicle miles traveled is a new metric that's being addressed as part of this project and the CEQA document. And really, it measures the amount of travel for all vehicles in a region over time, and whether or not this project increases the VMT in the area. I can say that preliminarily, pending final Caltrans review and approval, this is a VMT neutral project. It is not going to contribute the project will not contribute to an increase in VMT, and it is being analyzed as part of the project. Also, though, LOS is required for analysis just based upon the fact that it's part of San Mateo's general plan, and what you saw a little bit tonight, that analysis will also continue with the environmental document as part of CEQA, even though it's slightly different now in the VMT world. With that, here's how to comment by May 24th being the deadline. This information will be presented again at the scoping meeting. I will say that the presentation that you're seeing tonight is largely going to be duplicated in the scoping meeting. It's not going to be a different presentation. So if people attended tonight, they shouldn't feel obligated to attend the scoping meeting. This is, actually got to the final scoping meeting presentation and I pared it down for tonight and only by removing a handful of slides. So this is the majority of the content and we can make this presentation available. And with that, I thank you and try to stop sharing my screen. So, hold on. Try
Great.
sharing another.
Thank you very much, Matt, for that presentation. Before I open it up to public comment, is there anyone that would like to ask questions in regards to my colleagues? Please raise your hand.
Give me a second. I got to get rid of my laser pointer before it'll let me click on this screen.
Madam Mayor, is this the time for questions and then later on for comments? Is that how you envision it?
Yes, we'll do questions first because I want to get into the public comments and then we can always comment after.
Thank you.
All right, does anyone have questions? Okay, doesn't look like it. So I am going to jump onto the attendees. Please raise your hand if you'd like to speak. Okay, let's start with Jennifer Pfaff, please. Do you want to unmute yourself, Jennifer?
There, sorry about that. Thank you, Mayor O'Brien. Dear Mr. Zuka, I have responded to the call for comments and copied our very able Mr. Machuza. And my comments had to do with both Bayswater and Howard. Apparently numbers were collected, but there is no dot shown as far as level of service, not for now and not for 2045. So I want to reiterate for the public record that I'd like that actually on the next presentation if possible. And the other thing is you have mentioned that environmental, or I think community impacts was the verbiage we just saw on one of the slides, will be considered. But then on the other hand, you're telling us we're outside the project area. So I'm hearing two different things. I'm hearing, you'll look at those, but really you don't have to deal with them. And so maybe you can explain for our council and the public, what does that mean? What all difference does this really make for the end of the project, assuming it goes forward?
Okay. What I'll do is I'll just go through each person who wants to speak. And then once I close the public comment, then Matt, I'm going to give you the opportunity then to answer some of these questions that are coming up. Lynn Feeney, please.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. As with Jennifer and a number of people, I've been quite involved in this for over the decade. And what we are concerned about really is that, just as Jennifer was saying, that you have to have these meetings, but in reality, you really don't care. So my husband and I decided to do a tabulation of the streets and apartment buildings and driveways and all of that between 101 and El Camino on Poplar, as well as on Peninsula. So, I think I may have sent this to Syed, but so for instance, from 101 to Poplar, to El Camino on Poplar, there are 9 cross streets, including El Camino. There are 12 apartment buildings. There are 26 houses, and I'm going to be sending this to the Caltrans and San Mateo people later. 26 houses with driveways, 2 schools. Railroad tracks are raised at Poplar as well as down to the San Mateo train station. But when you look at 101 to El Camino, on Peninsula, there's 14 cross streets, so there's 5 more. There's 23 apartment buildings, including 3 large ones and many small, medium. There are 41 houses with driveways versus the 26. There are 2 schools, similar. The railroad tracks are not raised at Peninsula, nor Bayswater, nor Howard, up to the Burlingame train station. So the impact, what we see if you are in Burlingame, and especially in Lion Hope, is that the traffic, people are going to start going down Bayswater. They're going to start going down Howard in order to be able to bypass Peninsula, because there's not going to be the overpass. It's just going to back everything up. I'm on Dwight Road. It has a traffic light. So people are going to be coming down my street as well. So, I think what we sense is that there's this minimization of the Burlingame Lion Hogue community. And just because it's not being part of the eminent domain area. So, one of the things that I'm wondering about is whether, I don't want to minimize the 5 houses that are between 101 and Humboldt on Poplar, but perhaps you should be looking at taking those as eminent domain rather than the 25 small businesses plus the low income Bayview apartments. So, what we have felt is that you have not really looked at any option other than the one you decided 10 years ago. So it's, that's why we keep on being engaged, trying to see what we might be able to impact in terms of the scope or the alternatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Is there anyone else? Monica.
And I received an email as well.
Okay, so let's go with Monica first, and then we'll follow it with emails that have been sent in to you, Megan. Thank you. Monica, go ahead. You need to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to further elaborate on what Lynn was just speaking about, and that is we keep being told that Peninsula Avenue is essentially a 4-lane road, which is not true. After you pass Humboldt, it's really only a 3-lane road. 2 lanes heading from the west side to east, and 1 lane heading from east to west towards El Camino. With the recent change of the exit on 101 in Peninsula and the traffic lights that have been put in there, the traffic backs up horrendously already all the way onto the freeway. The peninsula is not wide enough to accommodate additional traffic to go all the way from the freeway to El Camino based on the 3 lanes that are in existence today. I don't think there are any plans, or at least I haven't seen any, that show that we're even going to make that stretch from Humboldt all the way up to El Camino a true 4-lane road on Peninsula Avenue. And human nature being what it is, people are not very patient. People are not going to sit there and wait while they're backed up. They're going to look for alternative ways to get around the traffic congestion. And the natural path for them is to either go down Bayswater or Howard Avenue. And those roads, unfortunately today, don't have any true traffic calming measures implemented. The stripe painting that's been put on there does absolutely nothing. People drive over those painted stripes without any problem. There is no physical barrier to slow people down going down Howard and Bayswater today. So I'd like to see what kind of traffic calming measures will Burlingame implement to discourage people from taking those side roads because they're not patient enough to sit in traffic on Peninsula Avenue. And how are we going to ensure that we maintain the quality of life for people living in the Lion Hope area?
Great. Thank you very much, Monica. To our city clerk, Megan, can you read the emails that came in?
Yes, we got one email from Manito, and he says, "Thank you, San Mateo, for an excellent presentation. And he has 3 points. 1, consider designing the lanes on the overpass that are not freeway width lanes. The plan to add bike lanes with a vertical buffer is a great feature, thank you, but hopefully the traffic lanes are right sized so that they are not overly wide and catered towards 65-mile-an-hour traffic and large semis. Keeping the lanes appropriately narrow keeps traffic speeds down and keeps crossing distances down, avoids an imposing overly wide overpass as well as keeping costs down. 2, be sure it is clear who is responsible for maintaining what. Who's responsible for operating and maintaining the new signals? Who's responsible for cleaning and sweeping debris on the overpass? Who's responsible for the new roads? And lastly, please consider including the full signal upgrade of the intersection of Peninsula and Dwight/Delaware that's by Safeway. The signal is ancient and is not traffic responsive. Upgrading the signal will benefit both Burlingame and San Mateo residents and will ensure any traffic flow improvements are realized fully on the corridor.
Great, thank you, Megan. Before I close the public comment, is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, on that note, I am going to close the public comment. I am going to let Mr. Matt Zuka respond to any of the comments he heard from the public. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Didn't realize I'd done that. Yeah, and if I miss anything, please feel free to jog my memory. I tried to take notes. So I think one of the initial comments and questions was community impact and the evaluation in the EIR. I think that the project is considering a broader scale of things. First of all, I'll say the EIR is not limited at the boundary between San Mateo and Burlingame. The EIR has to consider all environmental impacts. So it is independent of sort of the geopolitical boundary that might exist and has to be sort of broader than that. And that's a law. It doesn't stop at the San Mateo Burlingame city lines. So I think that the project is doing that. In terms of the traffic itself and not all dots on the map, if the commenter wants to point out the specific one that they felt wasn't represented, I was just glancing through and I wasn't able to pull that out. So, but by all means, submit a comment and we'll take a look at that. And I can, provide my contact information. But that, for as far as I could tell, that information was there. Let's see. I would say that the project is actually looking right now at another option that was brought up during public comment about is it possible to somehow cantilever the off-ramp to avoid some of the right-of-way acquisition. Right now is the actual opportunity to submit comments for any design alternatives that might be considered as part of the project. And it's something that we don't think it's going to be evaluated and put forth before Caltrans. And we actually got this comment after our January 27th meeting. So I think we are open to other ideas on how we might be able to address what we see as a significant congestion and safety issue. I mean, also on Poplar, there are 3 schools right there, two intersections away between San Mateo High School and an elementary school and an adult school. So, side by side, we think that the modeling shows that we're able to handle all of the traffic volumes much better using Peninsula as an overall facility. We also looked at how the different communities might utilize the new off and on ramp in the future. Just if you look at the PM peak, which is sort of the evening commute, especially when you look at the proximity of employment and then of sort of the residential, the model shows that actually this is being utilized more by Burlingame than it is by San Mateo during particular certain times of the day. So we do really think that this is a regional benefit project. It's not just a San Mateo project to get the congestion off of the city of San Mateo streets. It's going to substantially decrease travel time and allow for improved traffic operations to both communities. So we do think it's a good project and stands on its own merit. I would say to the comments about the bike lanes and appropriately narrow lanes, maintenance, we will certainly address all of that. To upgrading the Peninsula Dwight Delaware interchange, it's an item that's on, I know, the City of San Mateo's capital improvements program. It is an ancient intersection. That's actually one of the reasons that dot was a higher collision area, in our opinion, because there's an unprotected left-hand turn when you're going on westbound Peninsula. And so we do intend, not as part of the project, but as part of just overall our CIP, to at some point when we can improve that. I think we'll have to collaborate with Burlingame on that because it's outside sort of the project footprint. But it is a valid point. It is an ancient intersection, and we do have every intent of upgrading that on its own merit, independent of this project. So I think that captured it, but if there's something that I missed, by all means.
Thank you, Matt. So I have a follow-up question then. So I think it was Monica that may have made the comment that, you know, people may not be want to wait on Peninsula because it's getting too crowded. They'll divert to other streets. Does that get studied throughout this EIR to see what those potential additional routes that may happen and have an increased impact in the neighborhoods?
Yeah, I would say that the main analysis that's being performed is what are the volumes, what's the level of service, and what's the queuing, sort of the backup of traffic at any given segment of road. The Peninsula is an arterial, and I agree that there are behavior tendencies. If Peninsula is flowing freely, there is not the incentive to take the cut-through traffic. So the project has been looking at how can we keep the arterials, the Peninsula, flowing freely. And I think what we've shown so far is that we have every expectation that at the design in 2045, that it will do so. So sort of by definition, then the desire to then take short circuits and cut through, if you will, is not there. If people do it anyway, that's kind of on them, but the project isn't creating a driver, as far as we can tell, that would want people to do that. And that's in the information we presented so far. So I think it will also be carried through. Well, I don't think it will be carried through to the draft environmental document as well. If there are specific things that, again, this is a great opportunity. If this is something that people want to ensure gets studied, then by all means submit a written comment and we can, the project team will consider it.
All right, since we only have a few minutes left, I want to make sure that my colleagues have an opportunity to speak. So who would like to speak? Anyone? Councilmember Beach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I appreciate Mr. Zucca and the City of San Mateo being with us tonight. I think all of us have been tracking this very closely. I think I've attended as many of the 2017 meetings as I could, the January meeting, 2021 as well, and really listening to the public on all sides of this. Appreciate also that you increase the traffic studies to those, various intersections. What is it, the 44 additional areas to see how it would impact Burlingame. So, and we appreciate you being here tonight. As far as, I guess you're asking us what areas of study, what things you should be thinking about as we go forth here. I think what I've heard from the community is many things tonight. Level of service, it sounds like the traffic studies have provided some insight, but I'm particularly interested in that one slide. We don't have to go back to it, but it does look like there's one big red bubble level of service on Peninsula. I think that's Dwight.
That is
really
Dwight.
rather large. So I think that's the intersection that Mr. Velasco is probably
Correct.
referring to.
Correct.
Like to explore if that should be part of the project somehow, because not only for level of service, but for safety, right? That ultimately a project like this should benefit the safety and the quality of life for the whole community, regardless of the city lines. So I think we'd be very interested in understanding how motorists, pedestrians, and cyclists, all modes of transportation, are going to be impacted from a safety perspective and level of service in terms of speeds, in terms of built environment and infrastructure. You touched upon some of the new infrastructure on the overpass, but paying particularly attention to that peninsula, and I guess it is Dwight. Air quality, I think, would be interesting to look at. Does it improve? Does it worsen? Is there less idling? Are there more vehicles? I was interested that you said VMT is going to be studied, but you anticipate it being VMT neutral? I'd like to learn more about that. Doesn't have to be tonight, probably don't have time to comment, but I think I'll be particularly interested in that. How does this, if any way, impact public transit in some way? How does it impact air quality? And I think there was some other comments as well. I think some of our community is concerned. I know it's out of the direct project footprint, but is there a vision that San Mateo has as you go down this road for how does Peninsula, how will that be configured? Will the parking remain on the San Mateo side? Will it remain a 2-in-1 for the most part once you get beyond Dwight? What is the vision for what that roadway looks like? And maybe that's in partnership with the city of Burlingame we have to look at. I know we heard another comment at, I think it was the January meeting. What does this mean? What is the project doing insofar as to make sure it's a beautiful overpass? It does not create blight. Is there greenery? Are there pocket parks? Is there something that can be done around the infrastructure to make sure that it's an improvement to the community rather than a detraction? And I think those are some of the things that I'll certainly be looking very closely at. And I think one thing that we probably don't have time to answer tonight, but continues to come up even with some of our traffic safety parking commissioners and our members of our community. I know you addressed it in the January meeting. I encourage people to look at that, but there's always a question in our city: can you keep the Poplar intersection either open for a continued period of time, and what are the impacts there? And I think you've answered that before, but that's a question that our community is continually concerned about. So thank you so much.
Councilmember Brownrigg.
I'll try to be.
I'm sorry, and I'm sorry. I meant to say the Poplar, the Poplar.
I know what you meant.
You knew you were
Yeah, I
reading
knew
my
what you
mind.
meant.
But that's the question the community has. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay, we only have a couple of minutes before our meeting starts at 7, so we'll go with Councilmember Brownrigg, followed by Councilmember Coulson, please.
So I confess to being a little frustrated because I could see this was going to happen. I wish we had another 15 minutes or so, but so I'll try to be quick. The issue, the reason we had this meeting was to focus on Burlingame concerns. So how you deal with eminent domain in San Mateo, I think, is a really tough political question. It's not my political question. That is your decision. But what I think there's a couple of tensions that need to be resolved. One tension is level of service matters a lot for motorists. It doesn't matter a lot for homeowners. Homeowners don't care, right? So what we're trying to deal with is a community that feels that if there is a much more robust intersection, by logic, it will bring a lot more traffic. What you and also Director Martuza both say is no, that won't happen. There won't be cut through traffic. That's really what we need to focus on for the city of Burlingame. What do we do to inhibit, prohibit, dissuade cut through traffic? One, and then two, I want to just emphasize what Councilwoman Beach said, which is I think the way we draw the traffic lanes on Peninsula, and especially whether we can soften the buffer on the Burlingame, on the Burlingame side, because it's more residential, it is an opportunity to give something back to homeowners who are otherwise going to see a road that gets quite a lot of traffic now, get even more traffic. And I think those are the factors from a Burlingame residential neighborhood issue that we need to focus on. And I concede that that's also the ball's in our court on that we have something to say about that. But that's what I think this community wants to focus on. And I would like that to be an issue that we drill down on more next time we talk about this. Thank you.
Councilmember Coulson.
Well, I know we're getting up to our 7 o'clock.
Yes, that's okay. I want my colleagues to be able to ask their questions, so we have this in the record.
So I take this intersection quite often because I live on this side of town. And I think for me, this is a really hard conversation because there's a risk of what you do and the impacts it has, and the risk of what you don't do and then the impacts that has. And so I'm trying to focus on those two narratives and that conversation. And it does seem to me that the do nothing alternative doesn't really manifest in a way that's very productive. So then to me, as a person who drives this to and from my home every day, it's making sure that I agree, the homeowners and the people that are going to bear the increased confluence of more traffic, more activity, that their concerns are met most. And they can get in and out of their driveways, they can ride their bikes, they can do what they need to do. So to me, when we have future meetings on this, sort of focusing on those elements would be really, really helpful.
Vice Mayor Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'd like to echo what Council Member Colson said. I think that's the real key to this whole thing is what does it look like if we don't do this improvement, especially when we're talking about cut through in the neighborhood? What does it look like if we get all the traffic backed up going down to Poplar and finding alternative ways versus what we do here? So I'm really curious to see the studies and looking forward to it. Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you, Matt, for the presentation. My comments are similar to my colleagues. I am concerned about, if there is queuing at the peninsula Peninsula, where's this traffic? How are they going to divert themselves through the neighborhoods, and how do we mitigate that? Also, the last thing, which you've probably done, but I'm just kind of checking in on that, with the additional building that we're doing in the downtown area, how is that incorporated into these numbers of potential increased residents? Because usually with increased residents, even though they're close to transportation, public transportation, they may not be using public transportation. So have we incorporated those number of cars that could potentially be utilizing, Peninsula Avenue? All right, so we will have to adjourn and go into our regular city council meeting, but I do want to thank everyone that attended this evening. It was good to hear your comments and your questions, and we have that now for the record. And Mr. Zuka, you are concerned, or you have their concerns on hand. And then just to double check maybe with our director Mutuza, so futuristically, we can actually have another meeting like this when we get the draft back. So in case there's any additional comments or any questions that our community has about that draft EIR, we can discuss it at a later date.
Yes, Madam Mayor, that would be the case.
Excellent. All right, thank you very much and have a good evening. And we're going to adjourn here and then go into our regular city council meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we stay here? Or do we go
I
to
think
another?
we stay here, do we, Megan?
It's just one link tonight.
Okay.
Well done, Megan.
Yes, thank you.
All right, now do you have to set up again, Megan, or are we going to go right into this, or I can go right into it? Okay, very good. All right, so welcome to our regular general council meeting on the 19th of April. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I think tonight I am going to have Director Mutuza.
Okay. I pledge
Allegiance.
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Director Mutuza. We will now go into the roll call. Megan?
Councilmember Beach,
Here.
Councilmember Colson,
Here.
Councilmember Brownrigg,
Here.
Vice Mayor Ortiz,
Here.
Mayor O'Brien.
Here. All right, we do not have a closed session. We just had our study session that we just finished. So I'm going to go right into the upcoming events, and we have a few. So there is a meeting on the 23rd of April, the Small Business and Government Economic Outlook. This is going to be done by Congresswoman Jackie Spear and Assembly Member Phil Ting. That will be at 12:30, again on the 23rd of April. Then we have our annual joint meeting between the Planning Commission and the City Council on the 24th of April, which is a Saturday, from 9 to about 12 o'clock. It, I think, is going to be an interesting conversation about three topics. One being the Envision Burlingame, the town square. That will be the first topic, and I think that will probably be one of the topics that the public will be most interested in. And then we'll also be talking about life science usage in the Bayfront and learning a little bit more on how that works and what's entailed in a life science development. And then finally, the last topic will entail potential issues that have come up at the Planning Commission meeting in regards to FYIs and how we address some of those concerns that have been brought up in the last year. We also have the Park and Rec has a Night Under the Stars, the 80s, on May 15th from 3 to 7 p.m. I think there's going to be some miniature golf entailed in this event and some family-friendly games. So you can go through the Park and Rec to find out a little bit more about that, because you will need to make reservations. And then finally, we do have a public hearing on the 3rd of May, which will be discussing the district elections. And so the community will have an opportunity to make comments at that meeting, and that starts at 5:30. So that's a little earlier than our normal study sessions. So I just want to reiterate that it is at 5:30 on the 3rd of May. Is there anyone, any of my colleagues that would like to add any events that I might have forgotten? Councilmember Beach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just the our city's doing some really exciting stuff for Earth Day, and it's all in the e-news, but hope people will participate and join in the fun and the great work to help our environment. Thanks.
Anyone else? All right, very good. So we have one presentation this evening, and that is on age-friendly cities. And I am looking to see. Okay, so Ray Ernest will be giving that presentation, and I see him as an attendee. So can we switch him, I guess, to a panelist?
Yeah, I just promoted Cynthia and Ray.
Okay, I didn't see Cynthia on there. Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay, I see Cynthia.
Okay, can we get started? Yeah.
Yes, you may. So are you starting, Roy, and then Cynthia?
Yeah, I'm going to start. Yeah.
Excellent. Very
Great.
good. Thank you, Roy.
Thank you, Mayor O'Brien. Yeah, nice to be with all of you tonight. And we're Cynthia Nakayama and I. We're both we share the title of Associate Director for Center for Age-Friendly Excellence, and we have the honor of working with an excellent task force that's been put together by several people who nominated some wonderful people on the task force to work with us to help Burlingame get an age-friendly community initiative started. And we just wanted to go through some of the basic things that we cover with the task force and with those that work with us, and I'll get started right now. So the first thing is we wanted to mention that just to tell you a little bit about Center for Age-Friendly Excellence. We started in 2017. We worked with Santa Clara County, all the cities in Santa Clara County, and helped them get started. And for the last 2+ years, we've been working with cities here in San Mateo, and we've worked with, so far, Pacifica, which is where I live, Daly City, Redwood City, Colma, San Mateo, and Foster City. And this year, we're going to be working with Burlingame, Half Moon Bay, and San Carlos. And our mission is to promote healthy, inclusive communities for all, particularly for older adults. And the World Health Organization, which is, you see their logo here, they helped start the age-friendly community movement back in 2005, and did a lot of research. And one of the main things that they want to see happen with these age-friendly community initiatives is to encourage older adults to achieve their potential and be a vital part of the community. So the next slide is, I just mentioned that they started in 2005, and right now there's over 1,100 cities worldwide, and we're going to be working with Burlingame, Half Moon Bay, and San Carlos. Right now in California, there's 54 age-friendly communities and counties, and we're going to have 3 more by the end of this year. And then, as you all know, there's what's called an age wave going on in our country and in many other parts of the world. And right now, the estimate is that about 10,000 adults turn 65 daily, and this will continue until 2030 and also probably go beyond that. By 2050, at least 22% of the world's humans will be people over the age of 65, and most will live within cities or suburbs like Burlingame. So when the World Health Organization got started back in 2005, one of the things that they did research on is they went around and talked to communities that were interested in doing pilot projects, and they talked to many of the older adult residents of those communities. And one of the things that they noticed was 8 areas, or what they call domains, kept coming up in the conversations. And this is the set of categories for each community that we focus on when we work with each city. And most of these are pretty obvious. I'll just kind of go through them real quick. Outdoor spaces and buildings, where people can gather either outdoors or indoors. Places that are free and places that are reasonably cost. Transportation, how people get around. And that doesn't include just cars or buses or subway systems or trains. It also includes bicycles and pedestrians, people walking, getting around the city. How safe do they feel as they cross busy intersections, things like that. Social participation, and that basically is how possible is it for older adults to participate in the life of the community and feel like they're part of the community. Respect and social inclusion, that has to do with, as you know, that there is an ism there's many isms out there. One of them that we talk about quite a bit is ageism, and how older people can be stereotyped, and also when it comes to social inclusion, they've noticed, the World Health Organization, and we certainly have noticed when we've worked with cities, is there's a great interest in intergenerational connectedness. So how many an age-friendly city, one of its hallmarks is that the older adults have opportunities to have meaningful and constructive engagement with people younger than themselves and outside their families. Civic participation and employment. That's basically meetings like this, having a chance for everyone of all ages to connect with their city leaders and be part of a committee or a service club like the Lions Club or the Rotary and things like that. And then, of course, there's many older adults that have decided they either have to work or they want to work, either full-time or part-time. So that's what has, employment. And then communication and information, that has to do with just how do you get the word out about all the services that are available and that exist in and around Burlingame, and how do you inform people of important developments in the community. And unfortunately, many older adults don't use the internet. About a third of older adults right now don't use the internet. So that's a big topic that always comes up when we talk with cities. And then the last is community support and health service. And that has to do with all the services that are out there and access to health services and how close hospitals are and medical offices and doctors and all that good stuff. And one of the things that we also talk about with each city is all the things that you have going for your community as an age-friendly community already. And one of the things that we learned from talking to Mayor O'Brien and other folks is that you have a new community center that's being built right now. And there's a part of the community center, there'll be a designated area for older adult programming and older adults to gather. You have a bicycle and pedestrian master plan update, and that relates to the domain of transportation, of course. And then you have a wonderful program called the Memory Cafe. Right now it's virtual because of the pandemic, but that's a very innovative program, and you should be proud that you have a Memory Cafe program in your community. Not every community has programs like that, but it's really, really helpful to people who have dementia and the people that care about them, their family and their caregivers. And then, of course, you have right now you have a lot of public works projects. I just heard a little bit about that during your study session, and so you've got a lot of stuff going on. You have upgrades to parks. You're trying to put in more seating, which is always a topic that comes up when we talk to cities, and then projects that include mixed use areas. So those are some of the things that we talk about with each city. Now I'm going to turn over the rest of the slides to my colleague Cynthia Nakayama, and she's going to take us to the end of the presentation. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Thank you so much, Roy, and thank you all for having us here. So I'll go through pretty quickly through the age-friendly process model that we have been using in San Mateo County. We are very fortunate that we've been working with such a strong and excellent countywide core team of community leaders, and that includes Mayor O'Brien. Also, she is also the legislative aide for Supervisor David Canepa, and we have certainly appreciated their very strong support over this time. In addition, we have wonderful other core team members, including the County Commission on Aging, San Mateo County Health, Aging and Adult Services, and also the Peninsula Family Services. So this core team helps us in determining some potential task force members that we can work with and go through the process. And once confirmed, the cafe and the task force begins the major work of putting together focus groups and having these inclusive and diversified groups in order to determine what the unmet needs are for older adults in the 8 domains that Roy talked about. Sometimes cities also add one additional domain, such as dementia or emergency preparedness. Thank you, Mayor, and also Council Member Colson for being a part of this task force. The qualitative data is the heart of the age-friendly process. And from these focus groups, CAFE completes a report that helps to guide the task force in determining about 3 different age-friendly projects that are included on the application. They do this after quite a lot of discussion. The application is then signed by the mayor and is submitted to AARP. So AARP's age-friendly community process and cycle is a simple 5-year commitment. Although the city of Burlingame is already age-friendly in many ways, in this cycle, they are in year 1. So you are going through the planning and assessment stage, as well as this future application submission. Once the application is reviewed and approved, the city will be certified as age-friendly. And this is where there are 2 years where AARP requires there's an assessment process as well as an action plan that is done within 2 years. Since CAFE only works closely with the task force up until the submission of the application, this is the part where the city gets more involved. We've been asked to talk a little bit further about the action plan because it is somewhat new. We, as Roy mentioned, we formerly worked under the guidelines of the World Health Organization, but now AARP manages this process. So the action plan is actually a new requirement. What it does is it signifies the commitment by the city to become increasingly more age-friendly and also provides more detail as far as their action plan over the next 5 years. This is a work plan and is, as I mentioned, is much more extensive, but because the action plan is based upon the assessments that are done that identify the unmet needs of older adults in the 8 domains, many cities and counties include all 8 domains in their action plan. However, it is not necessary to do so. If your city is very focused and has major projects in fewer domains, then you can just include those domains in your action plan. AARP requires a specific format of about 11 items. The major areas are an executive summary or a letter from the top elected official, an introduction to the plan, how the plan was developed, who was involved in the development of the plan, and who will be implementing it, and then, of course, the action plan itself. There are also content requirements. This includes what will be accomplished, how will this be done, by when, or the target date, who is responsible, and that may be a group of people or one individual, and what are the resources that will be used to accomplish this. They also require that there is a criteria for measurement and tracking, as well as criteria for evaluation. A few notes based on action plans completed by other cities and communities. Every community has a different amount of resources that they have available and can allocate to the age-friendly action plan. So this really affects the timing and staff that they're able to use. For example, a city with a small budget or no budget at all might have an all-volunteer group working on the action plan, so they do what they can. if there's a larger city, for example, Los Angeles had a very big budget and lots of resources. So they were able to have a large committee working on the action plan. A large city could also have an expensive consultant come in and help with the plan, or they may also have some support staff in official capacities that help out. This all impacts the results and the timing. So I hope that was helpful in providing a little more information on the action plan. Certainly we can answer questions at a later point. This is still new to both CAFE as well as the cities. Let's see. So as mentioned, there is an So there is an implementation time, usually after the action plan is done. And then at the end of year 5, oh, can you go back? At the end of year 5, there is an evaluation process. So you use the criteria to evaluate your accomplishments and submit a progress report to AARP. Then, of course, because cities are committed to continual improvement, the cycle starts again. So this may be a point where the city has new focus groups or new surveys that they implement. Next slide. As you know, having an age-friendly city is important as well as providing benefits. The one is economic benefits. In 2 Greater Kansas City studies, there was results that showed that maintaining and attracting older adults actually was more economically beneficial than attracting and maintaining working age adults, which is counterintuitive to what a lot of us would believe. Having an improved economy also leads to informed and targeted city planning that advances the quality of life. Then there is social capital. Being age-friendly creates community. This can include opportunities for intergenerational relationships or providing an environment that empowers older adults. Then, as has been mentioned, there are infrastructure innovations. Burlingame is certainly in process of doing some major innovations, which is very exciting based on their data. And this will improve the public buildings, traffic, housing, and parks. And this all creates healthy communities, which also provides up-to-date data for local authorities and supports the roles of communities services. And of course, as mentioned, we do have excellent partners in San Mateo County. So at this point, we do request the support of the city, not only to publicize the efforts that are going on, but also, as mentioned, once CAFE has completed the process of taking the task force and city through the application process, there has been a lot of work done by your task force. And so the city, community, and leadership support is needed in order to move forward and make sure that the age-friendly projects continue on and are accomplished. So we hope that we have your commitment to support this. And just to wrap up, an age-friendly city is an inclusive and accessible urban or rural environment that promotes active aging. CAFE's mission is to advance transformational change, to create vibrant, sustainable, supportive, and inclusive communities for all generations. Thank you so much for joining us in creating community.
Thank you, Cynthia and Roy, for your presentation. And I'll go to my colleagues too to ask if they have questions. But I did today forward to our city manager some examples of action plans, because that is something that when we first started for the county, it wasn't one of the criteria through the World Health Organization. And so there was this kind of transition period in the middle of all this where some of the cities didn't have the knowledge of putting together an action plan that they have to have in place in order to get recertified down the line. So after this meeting or tomorrow, the city manager will forward you the examples that actually Cynthia gave me a couple, and then I added 3 or 4 to those action plans that were sent. And so the task force has met once in Burlingame, and then there will be members of the task force that meet again later in the month to discuss the categories of focus groups. And then we try to find people that fit those focus groups. And those focus groups can be anything that may pertain to, you might have a group that's for ages 75 and over, another group, 55 to 75. You may have a group that is much more ethnically diverse, or a group that is maybe lower income, a group that might be in assisted living. So because all those groups have different needs and different views of what they feel is important to implement in the city. And so it's I think the way I look at this is when in government, we make policy decisions and we decide on capital improvements, that we really start looking at all this with an age-friendly lens, so that it goes across the board. Because sometimes we may have the tendency to focus on family-oriented type events or infrastructure, but maybe not necessarily older adults. So it's just remembering the community as a whole, with some of the emphasis on older adults and what they can do and what they'd like to see in their community. So to make sure that they are involved, because as many of you know, and especially during the COVID pandemic, there has been really an increased isolation amongst the older adults. And so we want to make sure they feel part of a community. So on that note, I will ask my colleagues if they have any questions or comments, and I will start with Councilmember Coulson.
Thank you. So just Roy and Cynthia are an absolute pleasure to work with. Thank you very much for helping us with this initiative. And I'm really looking forward to it. I have to confess that finally, it's been coming for a number of years. I decided I better actually sign up with my AARP card. So I know, I really appreciate that you're doing the work with them. And I keep, every time I get it, I like rip it up and put it in the thing. And I'm like, no. And then my husband started getting his because he's younger than me. And now we're both throwing him in the garbage. So I finally just recognized that, you know what, we're all getting older. And I really appreciate that all my friends came here when we were having babies and children. And we've lived here for almost 25 years. And we're changing and our needs are changing. And I see it amongst my own friends in my community. So I think this is a really important step to be proactive on, and that by the time the general population of Burlingame really starts into those golden years, we'll be really prepared to manage it. So thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that has questions or would like to make any comments before I open it up to public comment? Vice Mayor Ortiz, followed by Councilmember Beach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just think some of the things that Councilmember Coulson just said hit home, because being her elder, if she's already signing for AARP, then I don't know what that does for me. But so this really does hit home where, and she's right. A lot of us came here when we were a lot younger, and now we're aging. And I think for a lot of us, this is a great place to stay and grow old in. And so, yeah, a lot of these improvements are just to the age group that we belong in, looking forward to it. So thank you for the presentation. Thank you for all your efforts.
Councilmember Beach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for inviting such a great presentation and for the work that the task force is doing. I think it's so important that all we do, we look through different lenses, particularly with age-friendly lens. I think it's a fantastic concept and something that's really important. My question would just be for the city manager. Is this something that we need to think about in our upcoming budget cycle? Do we have the staff capacity to do whatever needs to be done as it currently exists? Just help enlighten us where we go from here, if this is something that the council wants to keep pursuing.
Right now, we do have some staff who are working on this, and I have not received any requests from them to supplement budget or anything. So if that does come to pass in the future, we can come back to the council and ask for funding. But right now, we're okay with what we have.
Great. Thank you so much.
And then also in regards to the help that we're receiving from Cynthia Roy and their team and Annabelle Pelham, the county actually is utilizing Measure K money to help with this grant for these 3 additional cities to get certified this year. All right, on that note, I am going to open it up to public comment because I do notice that Kathy Yule is on the line. She is a Burlingame resident who actually sits on the Commission of Aging for the San Mateo County. So I thought she might maybe want to say a few words.
And she's going to be joining us on the task force as well, which
Wonderful.
I'm very happy about.
Well, I wasn't prepared for any speech here. I am a brand new member of the age-friendly group, and I've been a commissioner for about the last 6 months. So I'm new to both groups, but real interested in help moving this project along, and look forward to it.
Thank
And
you
I see
for
a lot of council members that I've worked with on different projects, so I appreciate that. Hopefully we'll continue to work together.
Great, thank you very much, Kathy. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak? Are there any emails, Megan?
No, there aren't any.
All right, very good. So I'm going to close the public comment and I will go back to Councilmember Brownrigg.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say just a couple of quick things. One, I wanted to salute your leadership at the county on age-friendly cities, and thank you for that. The work to bring this to all of our cities. So, and to me, it's a little like the days before we had the Americans with Disabilities Act, and we were all sort of blind to the needs of people with disabilities, and we passed the act, and lo and behold, our cities change in a way that make them accessible and usable and warm and hospitable to people with disabilities. And that's what we need to do with our senior population that's growing so much. So thank you both, Roy and Cynthia, for your work on this. And then I'll use this as a shameless plug for one of my favorite aspirational projects for Burlingame, which is a much more robust shuttle service, because I really did become persuaded that seniors could, much as they love their single family homes, they become prisons once you can't drive. And so therefore, the more we can make public transit accessible, which I think in this case means shuttles, the better services we may provide. So hopefully there'll be a win-win in our future with that, because we do have aspirations for a much more robust shuttle service in our city. So anyway, thank you very much to all of you for your leadership on this.
Thank you, Councilmember Brownrigg. So thank you again to the council that has supported us moving forward with this. And we have a terrific task force that we've all put together, and some of those members, just off the top of my head, as you all know, Cheryl Fama, Andrea Papajohn, Mike Nagler, we have Stephanie Lee from our commission, we have then Margaret Glomstad, and we have Brad McCulley, we have Kathy Yule from the Commission on Aging, and we have Sala from the Yasim Foundation. So we have a really nice broad representation on this task force. So I look forward to working with the group and Councilmember Coulson and reporting back to the council on the progress that we're making, because we do want feedback from you also to make sure that we're developing programs or activities that we feel will be important to the community, and all that will be gathered from the focus groups on what they feel their needs are. And we also have to keep in mind, not everything has to be all new projects, because we are already doing quite a few projects that incorporate the criteria of age-friendly cities already. So we also don't want to reinvent the wheel, and we want to promote what we're already doing. So we just kind of want to increase that awareness. All right, on that note, thank you again, Roy and Cynthia, for your presentation. We appreciate all your help, and we look forward to working with you futuristically.
Yes, we do too.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good evening.
You too.
All right, on that note, next on our agenda is our public comments. And so members of the public may speak about any item that's not on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to suggest an item for a future council agenda may do so during this public comment period. The Ralph M. Brown Act prohibits the city council from acting on any matter that is not on the agenda. So on that note, I am going to open up the public comments, see if there's anyone from the public. You want to raise your hand to speak? Okay, if not, then Megan, have we received any emails in regards to public comment?
We have one from Manito. He says, good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. Council adopted the Bike Ped Master Plan in your December 2020 meeting. I believe the document on the council agenda that day was the one that was adopted. I just wanted to confirm that this is true. It would be inappropriate if the document was being modified and changed by the consultant or others after council had already taken formal action on the plan submitted to council. If that were happening, it would be occurring outside public view and is being done without full transparency. This may also be a possible violation of the Brown Act if true. Please consider agendizing a bike ped plan update item and possibly readopting the plan if substantive changes were in fact made after December. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. All right, on to our consent calendar. Are there any items that my colleagues would like to pull off? All right, I would like to pull off one item, and it's just basically a question that I have. So item 8E. And then can we have a motion then for items 8A, B, C, D, F, G, H, and I, please?
Public.
Make sure that the public doesn't want to pull anything.
Oh,
first.
sorry, yes. Open up to public. Is there anyone in the public that would like to pull an item off? Okay, is there any email, Megan, that we may have received that want to pull anything off? No, okay, thanks. Thanks for the reminder. All right, very good. So I think it was Vice Mayor Ortiz made a motion, but I'm not sure who seconded it.
Second.
All right, so motion made by Vice Mayor Ortiz, seconded by Councilmember Brownrigg for items A, B, C, D, F, G, H, I. Megan, may we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Beach,
Aye.
Councilmember Coulson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brownrigg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ortiz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes, so motion passes 5-0.
Now, I didn't actually make a motion.
Oh, I thought it was you, sorry.
No, I was just saying the members of the public, but I make a motion. I don't know if you need to redo that, but I do move to approve the items as stated.
I thought you didn't initially. I thought I heard your voice.
And
All I said is public comment, that's all.
And
Okay,
my
so
colleague-
through our interim city attorney, should we do this over again? I think you're muted.
Can you hear me now, Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Mayor. I think for Vice Mayor Ortiz's benefit, we should do it again just in his honor. One more
Oh
roll
man,
call
I
vote.
guess that means I've got to second it again. Jeez.
Well, you can switch it.
Sorry,
Councilmember Brownrigg.
sorry, put you off, buddy.
All right, so we have the motion by Vice Mayor Ortiz, seconded by Councilmember Brownrigg.
Councilmember Beach,
Yes.
Councilmember Coulson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brownrigg,
Still yes.
Vice Mayor Ortiz,
Yes, again.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. All right, so item 8E, I just had kind of a quick question on this one because if I remember correctly, this has come before us multiple times and there's always some issue that comes up. So I have two questions. One, what there was such a difference between the amounts that were mentioned in the staff report, a difference of 200,000. Do we kind of know why there was such a big difference?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, this is just for clarification purposes. We have been with before the council one time. We had to reject the bids because of some issues. This time is the bid items that we have received. It's over 200,000. They're not. When we look at the pricing of the bid items compared to the market pricing, compared to the other contractors' bids, they're not consistent. So the numbers are lopsided. And even though the apparent low bidder is $60,000 approximately lower than the second low bidder, but there are concerns for some of the bid items and they may create problems down the road. So we're trying to avoid that situation and then essentially rebidding this project again.
So then, Director Martuza, do we know what the potential timeline will be then to go through this bid process?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, we after tonight's council action, we will immediately go into rebidding this probably middle of this week or late this week, and we will have about a month or so. We would like to come back to council late. I would say probably early June to be able to award the contract.
All right, very good. So on that note, I will make the motion then to approve item number 8E. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so Mayor O'Brien made the motion, seconded by Vice Mayor Ortiz. Can we have roll call, please, Megan?
Councilmember Beach,
Yes.
Councilmember Coulson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brownrigg,
Yep.
Vice Mayor Ortiz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes, so motion passes 5-0. All right, so we go into our public hearings. And we have a public hearing this evening, one public hearing, item 9A. This is the introduction of an ordinance amending chapters 13.36.040, 13.36.042, and 13.36.043 of the Burlingame Municipal Code to establish a 2-hour parking along Howard Avenue from El Camino Real to California Drive. And I assume Director Martuza, you're taking this one?
Yes, Madam Mayor, that is me. You have already read the title. I will not say further about that. Essentially, council staff is requesting City Council to hold a public hearing to introduce the ordinance to amend the chapters as mentioned earlier. I will briefly provide you a background about the subject matter. This was a follow-up. This is a follow-up item regarding the direction City Council gave us on February 16th regarding long-term parking in the new parking garage lot at Lot N. That was based on the Traffic Safety Commission's recommendation. And as a added item as part of that recommendation was to convert the long-term parking, street parking on Howard Avenue to short-term parking. in order to implement the short-term parking as directed by council at the February 16th meeting, we do need to amend the ordinances as mentioned earlier, and essentially say, and this and staff will then come back to City Council the second meeting to formally complete the process. And there will be essentially from a cost perspective, there will be minor changes for the staff time involved in changing the parking restriction signage, which will be absorbed in the current department's operational budget. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Thank you, Director Martusa. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, if not, Megan, can you read the title of the attached ordinance, please?
An ordinance of the City of Burlingame amending chapters 13.36.040, 13.36.042, and 13.36.043 of the Burlingame Municipal Code to establish 2-hour parking along Howard Avenue from El Camino Real to California Drive.
Do I have a motion waiving further reading and introduce the proposed ordinance?
So moved.
Okay.
Okay. I am going to go with Councilmember Beach
Second.
and seconded by Councilmember Brownrigg. All right, then on that note, do I have to do a vote on that, Megan, or can I just go right into public comment?
Yes, you need to take a vote.
Okay, so let's do a vote on that.
Councilmember Beach,
Yes.
Councilmember Coulson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brownrigg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ortiz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. So then on that note, I will open it up to public comment. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak on this item? Okay, doesn't look like it. So I will close the public comment and I'll go back to my colleagues. Does anyone have any comments on this?
Just to appreciate, Madam Mayor, the work of the Traffic Safety and Parking Commission to sort all this stuff out.
Okay, very good. And then on that note, I'll just have Megan, you'll need to publish a summary of the ordinance.
Okay.
All right, very good. So on to staff reports. So we have one staff report this evening, and that is the adoption of the resolution of the City Council of the City of Burlingame approving the issuance of Burlingame Financing Authority not to exceed $22 million. So I am going to have our finance director do the staff report on this. Carol.
Yes.
You?
Yes, well, I'll introduce this item. I'll note that Vince Lizalde from the bonds underwriting firm Stifel Nicholas is on the call. Nicholas Jones from the city's financial advisor, PFM, is also available to answer questions. The staff report background section describes the 3 prior issuances of the city's storm drain bonds, series 2010, 2012, and again in 2016. The city's Public Works Department just recently finished spending the remaining proceeds from the 2016 bonds, and the market being what it is. I see, well, Vince Lizalde from Stifel Nicholas, he looks to be available as a presenter. Vince is great at explaining the current state of the municipal market. So I would think that if he could do that now, that would be great.
Sure. If folks can hear me, hopefully they can. It's good to be with you. As Carol said, my name is Vince Lizalde. I'm a managing director at Stifel, the city's bond underwriter for this transaction. And I was thinking in preparation for tonight that 10 years ago, I was doing my first transaction fresh out of grad school for the city of Burlingame. So it's good to be with you. And I think I told you this then, the same thing I'm going to tell you now. So at the risk of sounding like a broken record, interest rates are near historic lows, and it's a great time for the city to be refunding certain bonds for savings and also to be considering additional bonds for financing new storm drainage projects. So looking back to talk a little bit more concretely about where the market is today, if we look back a year ago, the municipal market saw some extreme volatility, of course, with interest rates spiking due to the COVID pandemic, pulling cash from bond funds. The good news is that as we've sort of seen a recovery and sort of the world get its grips around the pandemic, the broader bond market and the stock market have both rebounded. And we've seen that in the form of investors coming back into the market. We've seen tremendous demand for bonds, particularly municipal bonds, in the past 10 to 12 months. In fact, in the past 22 of the past 23 weeks, we've seen inflows averaging over $1 billion a week, with more than $2 billion flowing into our market just last week alone. So while issuers like the city are in a strong position to enter the market, I should note with some caution that we have seen interest rates rise in the past couple months, particularly the taxable U.S. Treasury market, which gets a lot of the headlines as the economy has shown more signs of strength with, for example, the proliferation of the COVID vaccine in the past couple months. With that being said, like I said, interest rates are trading in this sort of low interest rate band. For example, the 30-year AAA MMD index is now just 1.55%, or just 16 basis points, or 0.16% above where it was trading just at the beginning of the year. So we're sort of off these historic lows that we saw at the end of last year, but we're still, within a pretty good range, and we're at the low end of the historic lows that we've seen in the past decade as well. So we expect this to continue in the near term and medium term. I don't have a crystal ball here, but I think we should be in a pretty good position as the city continues to move forward with the transaction and look towards the bond sale next month. The Federal Reserve has signaled that it'll keep the Fed funds rate low. We've seen continued signs of green shoots in the economy, with retail sales coming back in its report last week, but bond yields still remaining low. So we do expect the Federal Reserve action to be supportive here, and for that to be the basis for stability as we move later into the spring. So we're hopeful for that, and hopefully that continues to stay the case as the city's bond sales do come to market next month. With that, why don't I pause for questions? I'm certainly happy to answer any. Should any member of the council have anything to add or ask of me?
Thank you very much for that explanation. To my
Sure.
colleagues, does anyone have any questions or comments? Okay, Director Augustine, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, as we stated in the staff report, we're doing two things with these bonds. We are refinancing 8.6 million of the 2012 bonds outstanding. We're also the bond issuance will also provide an additional $10 million of new money. This is probably the last of the storm drain bonds that can be supported by the storm drain fee. It expires in 2038, so all the issues have a final maturity of 2038. And that being said, there's a pro forma sources and uses of funds in the staff report. It's a little bit different than the more recent good faith estimates in the attachments, but they're all estimates, and we'll see how the market performs for us next month.
Very good. Thank you, Director Augustine. Councilmember Coulson, did you have a comment and or question?
Yeah, no, just more of a comment. I just think this is really good, an example of really good public policy of just our staff being on top of interest rates and knowing what's going on and being thoughtful around the market. And just an example of a way we save our city residents money, and we make the dollars that we have go a lot further. These are the kind of things that I think not every city probably does or thinks about or engages in. So from my standpoint, I really support this, and this is one of the reasons I'm really, really going to miss Director Augustine when she retires, because she's on this stuff and it makes a difference. So you got whoever takes this job has got big, 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 big shoes to fill. So thanks for always being on it.
I would have to agree. Councilmember Coulson, is that a motion?
That is a motion to accept the, how do I want to write this?
Resolution.
To accept the resolution, yeah, as proposed by in the staff report.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, very good. Motion made by Councilmember Coulson, seconded by Vice Mayor Ortiz. I actually have to open it up to public comment. So to the attendees, is there anyone that would like to make a public comment on this item? Okay, if not, Megan, did we get any emails?
No, we did not.
All right, then on that note, could you please take a vote for us? The roll call, please.
Councilmember Beach,
Yes.
Councilmember Coulson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brownrigg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ortiz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes, so the motion passes 5-0. Very good. That leads us to item number 11, council committee and activities reports. Is there anything that my colleagues would like to add? All right, if not, any future agenda items? All right, any acknowledgements? On that note, what we will be doing is we'll be adjourning this meeting, and then we go into our financing authority meeting to discuss one resolution in regards to the adoption of the issuance of the storm drain revenue bonds. So I'm adjourning the city council meeting on the 19th of April at 8:02, and then reopening to the financing authority. And so Megan, can we have a call to order, please?
Roll call, sure. Board Member Beach.
Here.
Board Member Coulson.
Here.
Board Member Brownrigg.
Here.
Vice Chair Ortiz.
Here.
Chair O'Brien.
Here. All right, and then we have one item, and that item is the adoption of a resolution authorizing the issuance of storm drain revenue bonds to finance capital improvements to the storm drain system of the city and to refund the authority storm drainage revenue bond series 2012, authorizing execution and delivery of a trust agreement, an installment and sale agreement, a bond purchase agreement, and an official statement, and authorizing execution of documents and the taking of all necessary actions relating to the issuance of the bonds. And to our finance director, Augustine, is there anything that you would like to say in regards to this?
No, that's a very long-winded title. It explains it all. It's the flip side of the action that you just took as city council. And all of the documents are attached to this staff report for the financing authority.
All right, and then to my colleagues, any questions? Comments? And do I need to, I don't need to open this up, or do I? For public?
Yes.
Okay, so let me open it up to the public. Is there anyone that would like to talk about item 14? Okay, if not, closing the public comment, and then can I have a motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt.
Second. Oh, I'm sorry. I'll defer to Councilman Beach.
Motion made by Councilmember Coulson, seconded by Councilmember Beach. Megan, can we have a roll call on this?
Board Member Beach.
Yes.
Board Member Coulson.
Yes.
Board Member Brownrigg.
Yes.
Vice Chair Ortiz.
We didn't hear you, Vice Mayor.
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yes.
We just got
Yes.
it. Thank you.
Chair O'Brien.
Yes. So the motion passes 5-0. And then on that note, there is nothing else. We can go right into adjournment. I just want to mention that our next city council meeting is on the 3rd of May and starts at 7. However, we do have the study session in regards to the district elections at 5:30 that day. And then a reminder that we have our joint planning commission and council meeting this Saturday at 9 o'clock.
Madam Mayor, if I may just, on logistics, since we're all on the phone, the budget meeting is now May.
Budget meeting's on the 12th now. We moved it.
Move that.
But May 5th still has a closed session and does
We
that
do still have a closed session on. Right now it's at 5:30 and we'll let you know if that time changes.
Okay, so closed session at 5:30 on the 5th.
Correct.
Thank you.
That's a time sensitive matter, so we can't move that to the 12th to sync them up.
No problem. I just didn't know what time of day it was. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, are we all good now with all those meetings? Make sure everything's in your calendars.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
All right, very good. So have a wonderful rest of the evening. Bye-bye.